Welcome to my channel. My name is Josh, and today I'm going to be talking about the major layoffs happening in tech and what I think is actually the cause behind them. Let's get started.
I have a lot of opinions on this, so I'm very excited about it. Hey Josh, appreciate this video. Very excited. Elon Musk mentioned.
The first thing I want to talk about is what's been kind of on everybody's mind, which is AI. You always constantly see articles and people talking now everywhere around the internet about how AI is going to replace programming jobs.
One quick kind of pause here. Did you know, I did want to go over this here soon, but GitHub does this like yearly accelerator thing, and this year's accelerator will only accept AI-powered stuff. So yeah, AI is kind of
Welcome to Costco. I love you.
I forgot to turn off alerts, but AI is gone wild. AI has gone wild as shit, and now they're actually even like, I mean, dude, that's crazy news, right? That's crazy news right there, that they're only accepting AI shit. Like that's wild. Like this is like peak crypto right now. We are now officially entering to the NFT phase of AI.
Now, I'm probably going to have to make a totally separate video about this particular topic because it's such a big topic. But the truth is, I think that is a pretty minor reason why people are being laid off right now. When we look at the big tech companies.
By the way, I think AI has literally not laid off a single person in programming. I just don't even believe it. If someone actually even tries to tell me, I will just plug my ears and go la 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 la. I don't even believe it at all. I think the only thing that has happened is that it's just created more jobs. I think we're probably at a significant increase in jobs due to AI. If AI is writing 55% of your code, you're going to need 1.5 times more power to actually do it. And if you're letting AI write your unit tests, you are a damn fool. Okay? That's all I got to say to the topic.
Which I'm going to get into in a minute. And why they're doing these huge layoffs, I think there's something maybe much deeper that's rotten at the core. And I think probably the most significant things are things
React mentioned
people aren't really talking about or thinking about. So I'm going to get into that in a few minutes, but I just want to kind of get the AI out of here for the moment. If you've ever used Google Bard or if you've ever used ChatGPT to actually program and make stuff, you would know that it's not going to replace programmers anytime soon. Actually, AI isn't new.
Yeah.
We talk about it like it's new because it's finally, it's gaining public access, right? People are finally able to use it.
It's truly normie level, right? Before you had to be like, I solved the Queen's problem. And it's just like, cool, dog. That's pretty awesome. But now it's normie. Now it's just like, yo, tell me about Mogadien in Wheel of Time. You know what I mean? Or Mogadine. However you say her name. I have no idea.
To write stories, to plagiarize things, whatever. But when we really look at AI, it's been used for well over 20 years in aviation. It's been used for routing, pathing, all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
It's just finally people and the public have access, so they seem to think it's this new thing. Well, no, it's been replacing jobs for decades. It's not really new, and it's not going to replace programmers anytime soon, not entirely at least. If you work and, let's say you are a web developer that does HTML, CSS, and that's it, yeah, there's a possibility your job could be in danger maybe eventually, but certainly not anytime soon. And people that do hardcore logic, anything low level, anything C or assemblers, AI is just super inaccurate.
Low level learning, how do you feel about that? Quickly, can I get a quick take? Quick take, low level learning. How do you feel about you being safe right now? Hard agree? Hard agree. Okay, we got some hard agrees here. Okay, good. Just making sure.
Plus, the other thing, too, is the way AI works is it just resources public knowledge, right? AI doesn't really creatively solve problems the way people seem to think it does. It tries to solve problems based on data sets that are already developed, which means it can really only effectively solve problems that have already been solved. And the whole point of hiring a programmer, for the most part, is that your company or your needs are going to be specific to that product. Now,
does that mean that the day that AIs can do jobs, like just taking what he said, the day that AI can take everybody's job is the day in which we're not doing anything new? Or cannot be extrapolated from already built data sets? Is that supposedly the line? I mean, I still don't believe it. But that's also a bad take. Okay, why? Why? Hit me. Come on. I know you're new around here. Come on, let's go. I appreciate the fact that you said it with such with more verbosity than L takes, so I need to hear your reasons why. Hit me. You gotta hit me. You gotta hit me. New things aren't always completely new. Are you hitting me with some Solomon wisdom right now? That there's nothing new under the sun? Is that where we're going with this talk? Because in a sense, I do agree with you. Bro cooked. Yeah. Okay. I mean, I see what you're saying, that there technically isn't anything new. And if AI really what they are good at is just spotting distributions and replicating distributions, then yeah, they're just one really, really complex function approximation. That's really all a neural net actually does, is it just approximates. Then yeah, you're probably correct on that. That since there's nothing really, really new, one could argue that it could keep on approximating, but the problem is that approximation does not mean precision. Okay? You know, there's an old phrase. There's an old, close only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades. Which means it doesn't count for AI. Okay, last time I checked, AI is neither horseshoes nor hand grenades, so being close enough just doesn't count.
I make games. That's my job. I've tried to use AI to help with my game development, especially like hardcore logic programming problems. And I've just found it's just not very good. Sometimes it's helpful on some things.
Really great
it's
for
a good
math,
resource for a programmer to have, but it is not going to be replacing programmers dramatically anytime soon. It is a small factor. It is part of the reason why some...
By the way, when I say it's good at math, I mean it's like better than you at math, but it still completely makes it up.
Companies are looking to the future and saying we need to start laying off unnecessary staff because in the future, and they're anticipating that, this may replace certain jobs. But again, I think this is kind of a very small part of the reason why some people are being replaced. So I just wanted to kind of get that out of the way, get your concerns out of the way. Again, I'll make a whole video on this and why it's not going to replace people. Not truly later, but you don't need to worry about AI. That's not the major factor here. So another thing that it could possibly be is preparation for a looming recession. Most people that work in economics will tell you, as we speak, you see it all over the news, that a recession is probably coming. Stock values can only go up so high for so long before something has to collapse, right? It's the rules of entropy or gravity. Things can only get better and go up, and then eventually they have to come down. We look at interest rates, for example, and that's a good place to start your search if you think there's an economic recession coming soon.
I mean, there is a lot of discussion about that. The hard part about like recessions and tech is that tech has a disproportionate ability to monetize per employee. And so, like when you go to like a grocery store and someone that's working as a clerk, they're not bringing in the same value to hour that, say, someone that's working in tech. And that's because we don't, because a lot of tech doesn't have distribution problems in the same way. SaaS margins go burr, right? Exactly. It's just a different thing. And so like if you look at any tech company and you say how much money does it make per employee, it's really disproportional, right? It's really, really disproportional. So even if there is a recession, there is a pullback, there's a lot of ability to continue to pay for good employees. Now notice that I was very intentional about the word I chose there too when I said good employees.
Professionals and people that are analysts see interest rates and they see that as a concern. Companies, of course, hire their own economists, and the economists.
I do think war is obviously a big fear too, right? Because war is a dark horse that you don't like. Who knows how big those things can inflate to, and how they're going to change the economy and all that kind of stuff. So that's like that is a true worry. War is great to make money. I mean, most people lose money. Some people make money. Which war? I know that's the actual sad reality to the statement I'm making. Which war? War bad equals W take. I think war is bad. I would prefer no human loss. Like that. My ideal world involves people not having to kill each other to get what they want. Right? I think we can all agree that is not awesome. Brave take. I know. Brave take. I'm taken hard right now.
Are going to be going to the CEOs and going to the CTOs and people that handle hiring managers, hiring departments, hiring companies, whoever they outsource that to. And they're going to say, look, a recession is coming. We need to start doing minor layoffs slowly. And we have seen some of those. But again, of these big major layoffs that we're seeing right now, I don't think that this is the biggest factor. I do think it's a factor, just like AI is a factor, but it's not the big one. So that's the thing.
I think he's wrong here. I think he's honestly completely wrong, and I'll show you why I think he's wrong. And I can kind of show this with money. We can show this with money here very, very soon. But I can show you why he's wrong. So if you look at 2020 through 2022, what you're going to see is that every company grew like this. That's in the internet industry. And then from 22 to 2023, what you're going to see is actually less money being made. And now we're starting to reach back into the point in 2024 where more money was being made than it was right here. But what you're going to see is that everybody is staying at home and everyone's freaked out about COVID. Therefore, everybody's using what is referred to as the internet. And so what happens when you have an incredible amount of money, right? An incredible amount of money that is being pumped into companies and an incredible amount of use that has never been seen ever. Well, what's going to happen? What do you think employee headcount was doing during this time? Do you think that employee headcount remained stagnant? No. Employee headcount went like this as well. And then what happens when everything kind of crashes and people are no longer using the internet as much because all of a sudden outside is now a new possibility again? All of a sudden, all that hiring doesn't make any more sense. It just doesn't make any more sense. And you can see a lot of this. Like if you go to Amazon, what's it called? Amazon quarterly earnings. If you look at their quarterly earnings over time, you'll they don't give you actually specifics. It'd be nicer if they gave you specifics, but look at this. They were making less per share. Look at their shares go back up. Now, if we could get a little bit further into the past, you would see that their shares were also way up back in 2022, 2021, right? 2021, do they just have, I don't know if they have like a really quick, easy way to look at this. Do they have just like a nice table? They have a nice table. Net income. I assume these are in the billions, right? These are in the billions, but as you can see, the money went up, right? Money went way up on these things over this time. It's in the millions. Oh, it's in the millions. Oh, yeah, that makes sense. It's in the millions. What am I saying? The billions. The billions would be out of control. That would be absolutely out of control. The millions, yes. Okay, it's in the millions, right? So net income went way up. Way up. I know Slack happened. Shut up. P-kill-9 Slack. Okay. And you can see this in a lot of companies. I believe if I even go to ir.netflix.com, which is a little bit easier for me to see just because they have if I'm not mistaken, if we do letter to shareholders, you can also see a similar kind of growth going on during this time, right? Where it's all going back up. And if you look at 2021/2020, you'll also see a really high usage. And so there's this whole thing that just happened. And so, of course, what's going to happen during this time is that way more usage than you've ever had in years, and then a sharp drop-off in usage. So by the very nature, you have to have a correction. And so what I personally think I see is that there's just been a correction to the overhiring. And I wouldn't even call it overhiring. I'd say it was hiring that made sense during that time. It's hiring that made sense when COVID was crazy and everything flooded in. And then all of a sudden, interest rates are going up. Money costs more to borrow. People aren't using internet nearly as much, right? And just everything started going that direction. And so now what do?
I want to get
let
into.
people go.
Now, as I start to talk about this, and as I start
My
to go
personal thoughts.
deeper into the problem, it's going to become more clear the more you start to look at people's critical roles in their company. The real and major factor that's causing a lot of these layoffs, I really do seem to think is being overlooked because people are so used to the way the tech industry works now that nobody seems to question it anymore. What's been happening in tech about the last 20 years is what I like to call a hyper specialization for roles, right? 20 or 30 years ago, if you were a programmer and you knew a couple programming languages or maybe even one, maybe you were a generalist, you could get basically any programming job. Companies were hiring based on the fact that you knew how to program and that you understood logic and you understood, generally speaking, how computer science works and how to make products that are useful for that company. That's not how it works anymore.
To be completely fair, though, complexity, I mean, the general problems we're solving are a lot bigger. Right? They're a lot different. They're very, very different. I'm not saying that there's a lot of complexity. I'm not saying that there's a lot of complexity that hasn't been introduced and foot shot, right? Like there's a lot, like how we approach UIs is significantly more complex in of itself than it ever was. But there's also billion-person sites now. Like, can we all agree that in the last 20 years, a lot of new problems that have never existed now exist for people to solve? And so it is just different. Yes, but only so many of them. Exactly. And the worst part is that people that solve those billion people sites, people take what they've done as the blueprint to how you should do. And that, my friends, is how you make your life miserable. That's called having more microservices than users. And it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible to see an app that can scale to 100 million users that has 3 users and they all go to the same email account, which happens to be the CEO's email account. Like it's just incredible. Somehow all of your users have test123 as part of their username.
Because somewhere along the way, big companies like Facebook, I think Snapchat is a particular offender. I'll talk about that in a minute. They started to realize that they could grow their companies artificially.
Snapchat, the only company that made a lot of money without actually making money. Absolutely incredible.
Officially, if they started hiring more people than they really need. Most tech companies, most social networks could be managed by shockingly small teams of programmers. Now, I'm not talking about legal, I'm not talking about HR, resources, other things that are considerations as well.
Elon Musk
But
mentioned?
just the actual tech that goes into an app for iOS. Let me give you an example, say Instagram or Snapchat. I think it would surprise most people how few programmers it actually takes. A lot of these social networks were developed originally by one person, but now for some reason you look at a company like Snapchat, who even uses Snapchat anymore. They still have something like 6,000 employees. Why?
Okay, that is personally surprising. I do agree that they've overhired. Okay, I think we can all agree that they've overhired. I mean, I think there is definitely a miss here. Comparing Facebook to when it was first ideated and written in PHP to what Facebook is today, it is a stupid comparison. Of course, there's like a lot of different things that have to exist. Right? It is a stupid comparison to say that they're the same thing. Why can one person build this but not that? And it's just like, well, you're right. One person built a house. Why can't he not build a skyscraper? And it's just like, well, I mean, you could. It just might take a lot longer, It is a different beast, and there's different problems that exist in these things, especially when it comes to social problems, because the amount of like network requests and ingress data that comes in, just an entire different beast you have to think about. I'm not saying that they're done well. Can we all agree they're not done well? And obviously Elon Musk kind of proved the point that you could cut the headcount to 1/5, and for the most part, it's not like, I mean, can we all be real for a second? Twitter, with all of its badness, still operates better than almost any AAA game. Fight me on that one. Name a AAA game that's not just doo-doo. Okay? I'm just saying, one would assume that there is something to it. Okay, Baldur's Gate 3, great game. Baldur's Gate 3, fantastic. Warcraft 2, also a good call out. Warcraft 2 was a great game. Oh, so was StarCraft. The 90s was fantastic, and Elden Ring was amazing. I like how most of the games being mentioned are games from a decade ago or from free software. Yeah, you're right. Free software does a great job. Free software is one of the few places that I am confident that when something comes out, it's incredible. The Last of Us 2. Or FromSoft, not FreeSoft. Sorry, not FreeSoft. FromSoft. From Software is amazing.
Why do you need 6,000 employees? I could understand having a few dozen programmers, but they have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of programmers.
So I genuinely don't like this take in its archetype, not in its application. And what I mean by that is that, have you ever looked at software and then said, why would anyone ever do this? And then you take your software, you take that software apart and you completely dismantle it, and then you start rebuilding it, and then you go, oh, I see why they made that one concession here, but I'm doing it different. They didn't need to do it this complicated. And by the end of rewriting the software, you've rewritten almost line for line what they had. And that's because you have a fundamentally bad perspective of what is happening internally. You can't quite understand the entirety of what's happening. So I don't like in archetype saying, why does company need to have X when they could be using Y? I don't like that at the fundamental stage. But at the practical application, it does feel like there's too many. Okay, so I would agree. Why does Snapchat need 6,000 employees? Why can't they have 500? But I also might be the guy that's like, you only need 500. We get 500. And I go, oh, you got to hire a couple more here. Oh, yeah, I didn't know about that. You got to hire a couple more there. And the next thing I know, I'm back up to 6,000, right? Like, I don't quite know, I think you get the idea. But not 6,000 engineers. Maybe not 6,000 engineers.
Not to mention all their legal and everything else. So what we're seeing is a hyper-specialization of roles. And companies are doing this to prop up stock values. The core here is it's a type of invisible and legal fraud. If you keep growing your company...
That is pretty ballsy, especially with today's really hyper-focused on free cash flow. The ever hiring of employees is a really hard argument to make. Like right now, free cash flow is like a really, 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 in-depth perspective on what is on the health of a company. So I'd be a little bit surprised that hiring is health to a company right now.
Company by just hiring more people, and then investors and people that frankly don't know a lot about tech think that's necessary. They see that as positive indicators.
I would agree in the VC private funding rounds. This could vary. I think he could be very, very correct because those operate under completely different premises than publicly traded companies. And so that's why I was having a little bit of a problem kind of processing it, because I was still thinking in the Snapchat world where Snapchat is a publicly traded company versus if you're talking about a private company in these private equity firms, if you've hired a bunch more people, you've scaled up, you're solving problems faster. Right? I could totally see that, right? You're coming up with new vanity metrics where, network traffic has increased 40%, but internally your application's just that much more shitty that you're making 40% more network requests, right? Like I could see that being like a massaging point.
So your goal, if you're Mark Zuckerberg, is to make your company as valuable as possible to stock investors, not to the public. Facebook doesn't even need to make very much money at all. The key to Facebook being valuable, and more specifically Mark Zuckerberg being valuable, is doing what investors want and what lenders want. And they want to see positive growth constantly. In the industry, we call this employee farming. So the idea behind employee farming is as long as you keep growing your worker base, it looks like your company's growing. It looks like you.
That's really bad. Like again, he used Facebook as an example. The publicly traded company Facebook, they live and die by their revenue projections. They don't live and die by how many employees they have. And so this as a fundamental argument for why, say, Facebook would go is not correct. Now, he may be correct on principle in the sense that he's correct with private stuff, but it's not true in public. Public is all about growing revenue. And so you can't grow revenue by simply hiring employees. Right? You can't do that. It's no matter how you slice that cake, you can't do that. That's just not how it works. And so maybe you make more products that sell more, and so you're hiring more, and so your revenue is growing despite it actually not actually resulting in any real money being made. I could buy that. But saying that specific metric is the reason why I'm not currently buying that as the thing.
You need to hire those people. And therefore, again, bigger company means bigger stock valuations. It means lenders and investors see you as.
Sorry, one more interruption. Someone just said, Facebook stock price also went up when they started firing a bunch of people. They did fire a lot of people. They got slightly better margins. That means the money that they're making plus the potential growth that they're going to make now is just worth that much more. And then their stock price went up. And then, of course, they announced dividends, which is a hard set stance that you are going to have cash available afterwards. You're actually going to be cash positive, which means that people really invested because that's like a commitment at that point. And a commitment of a specific value.
Better growing big future company, even if it's not. And this is ultimately what's leading to this hyper specialization because they have to keep creating new roles. And when you look at these videos, I'm sure you've all seen them by now, people mocking them constantly on the internet. But you look at these videos of these girls and guys who work in this hyper specialized role, posting videos on TikTok, and they post videos on Twitter of like my day at Twitter or a day in the life.
Hold on, everybody. I'm getting view botted. Guys, this economy sucks. Okay, you think I can afford more viewers? But I do want to say, I do want to give like a quick like little shout out though. Hey, code OPG, I'm really proud that you were able to make all of this. I mean, you're a really special person, honestly. You're a very special person. I'm very happy that you are willing to be the absolute scum of the earth and say that to other people openly. Like, I'm personally really impressed. You know, like, because a lot of people, when they're scamming people, they kind of like to try to like hide, but you're not. And it's truly impressive. It's honestly truly impressive to be an asshole and be willing to let people know that you're the asshole. I mean, can we get claps? Come on. Let's get some claps. Wow. I mean, this is brave. This is bravery. This is bravery like I've never seen in my entire lifetime. Absolutely impressive. You know, honestly, when you get out of your mom's house, I could help you find an apartment. Like when you're out, let me know. We could find you an apartment. Maybe we'll get you a bed frame here in about a year, and then you won't look like you're 12 anymore. Like, it'll be really awesome. It'll be a great day.
Of a Twitter HR engineer or something like that. And it's basically the girl or guy just drinking coffee, hanging around, chilling out. They show themselves sleeping in these pods that they have now. They're really not doing much. And again, this is the result of hype.
I do agree with this. Now, that stuff. The problem is he's using the term hyper-specialized, which somehow feels wrong in the sense that the description of the role was drinking coffee and hanging out all day. You didn't specialize in shit. What did you specialize in being? Did you specialize in being what boomers think Zoomers are? Like, is that a specialization? I didn't realize that was a specialization. Now I kind of feel stupid, right?
Hyper specialization. They were basically just creating BS jobs, and now you have a bunch of people sitting around who don't work. Like once you have 100 programmers, you're
niched.
done.
Yeah.
You're not doing anything more useful beyond that. Maybe you.
Hold on. What did you just say? Oh, I gotta hear that.
Programmers, you're.
Hold on.
Jobs,
Hold on.
and now you have a bunch of people sitting around who don't work. Like once you have 100 programmers, you're done.
Again, I really dislike that take. That's a stupid take. It's such a stupid take. It is truly a dumb take. And what I mean by it's a dumb take is that, first off, never put a number on something. Number two is that, okay, you have an application. Let's just call it Netflix. And we built out a UI, right? You build out a UI. Okay, so how many people do you really need to build out a UI? Well, you're going to need to think about deployment, caching, that kind of stuff. So let's put a couple on build systems and stuff like that. You're going to want to be able to do various UIs. Plus, you're going to also need some testing. You're going to want some exploration on those UIs, various people writing stuff. You're going to need a few on that. You're probably going to want some form of really thinking about like testing and automation and all that kind of stuff. You're going to need a few more on that. Then you also are going to want people that are managers just in general of those however many programmers. You're going to need a few more on that. And then at that point, you're also going to need to think about, like, again, this is Netflix. You also have to run on various televisions. So you're going to need some partner engineers. So you're going to need a few on there, a couple per company, because you're going to have various relationships with every single last company to be able to make sure that everything's like, everyone is understanding each other and there's goodwill. So a few more on there. Then you're going to need some people that actually build the C++ like layer to have everything run. You're going to need a few on there. You're going to probably need some JavaScript engine experts or whatever embedded language experts you want to be able to tie the engine into whatever whatever the base layer is. We're going to need a few more on that. Then of course, you're going to need to think about automation and devices and all that. So now we're going to think a few more on that. Okay, so maybe we're over 100 at this point. Okay, that's a lot of engineers. I guess we don't need any more, right? Well, what about the entire backend? What about AI, right? What do you think AI has to do? Like, do you think those recommendations are math.random? What about security? Like, there's still an entire thing that exists that hasn't even been talked about, right? And so, yeah, there's a lot. So saying a hard number like that, you only need 100, you're discounting security, or you're not thinking about it. You're not thinking about what does backend mean, right? You're not thinking, there's a lot of stuff. Now, Netflix has like 12,000 employees, but a huge percentage, or however many, I don't know, what is the number? Netflix employee count, right? I don't know. I think, 12,000 is what they say. There's going to be a certain portion of that that's going to be HR, legal, you got marketing, you got engineering, you got a huge amount that's going to be on the content side, right? Like, I don't know how many people are going to be in the content side, right? There's a lot, like, total number of employees does not represent what those employees are. Now, I don't know if I can say total, engineering employee count. I don't know if they have we have 2,000 engineers. Honestly, which is kind of wild. Like, when you really think about what Netflix does and on how many different devices they do it, this is a shockingly low amount of employees. Because when you go to Google, and you see things like this, 27,000 software engineers. A different world. Okay, that's just if we can trust these two numbers and just assume they're the same, that's kind of wild, right? It's a wild thing. I'm not saying that Netflix is hyper efficient or that Google is hyper inefficient. We're just vastly different on what we produce. Right? So, anyways. Hey. All right, let's keep on going. Let's keep on going with this one. I do watch Asmonbald. I do watch Asmonbald. Okay, I do watch Asmonbald. Okay? Stop making... I love Asmon.
You're not doing anything more useful beyond that. Maybe you could have people in specialized roles outside of the tech. Again, people like legal and HR.
Again, like... a lot of discount here. What about like the Swift programming language? Like, that's such a hyper specialized role. And I'm using the term hyper specialized properly. How many people does it take to run a language properly, to run at the speed of a company? It takes a good amount, right? Like,
but we're seeing jobs for button engineers. Like, literally, they want you to specialize, not just in programming, but specialize in making a button. Do you know how
I do actually agree with this take. If your job is to just make a button at Facebook, like it's one thing if you're building out the UI component set, but if your job is to literally make a button, yeah. I mean, then yes, we can all agree that we've jumped the shark there.
How many people work at Snapchat, for example? Snapchat has, like I said earlier, about 6,000 employees, but they have over 400 employees that just work on UI. That's it. They do nothing but UI. The entire UI of Snapchat could easily be done by a handful of professionals, if not.
So Probably, I'm curious when they say UI, people use the term UI and it's not necessarily fair, right? Like when we say UI at Netflix, I mean, it does encompass quite a few things that would be difficult to really call UI. Localization is a huge thing, right? They fall under UI often. I can agree in the sense that I think UI is bloated, right? I actually agree with this fundamental take that I think that there's a lot. And this is us doing it with unnecessary complexity. I think there's a lot of bloat and really I have seen the most complex code bases I've ever seen in my lifetime have always been UIs, and it's not because what they're doing is complex. It's because they've decided to use really a fantastic ensemble of the most complex libraries. And it's like you look at it and you go, wow, like this is really hard to reason about. Like when I look at this code, I am genuinely trying to just really try to understand why you get there. And it is true. Judo, you're absolutely correct that anything that involves human interaction is inherently complex. Completely on that team. I'm not one person that thinks that I really hate people that just say UI or the front end is simple and the back end is hard. It's like, no, the front end is hard for its own reasons. It has its own things that are difficult, and it does take a really thoughtful individual that does a great job at making a good UI. Like a good UI is out of this world. Out of this world. But there are a few good UIs. A lot of them are crufty, slow, and annoying as shit to use.
Less, if not one person probably. If you've ever actually used Snapchat, you know it's awful anyways. The whole UI is just a complete disaster. There is no reason to have 400 people working on the UI. They don't even have 400 buttons. There's something like 30 or 40.
Okay, that's a fair take. They don't even have 400 buttons. I do like that as the measurement of of how many employees you should have. Dude, that should definitely exist. The amount of engineers you have. This is the Twitter moment. Twitter moment. This is a Twitter moment. This is a Twitter moment for sure. The amount of of software developers you have should be proportional to the amount of buttons on your UI. Go ahead. Fight me on that one. Fight me on that one. Yeah. It's a based take. That's a based AF take. Okay.
Buttons on the whole app. That's more than 10 people for each button that the app has and each function. But they do it because the company is forced into this cycle of infinite growth. And then other companies are doing it, so they have to compete or else they look like they're small and shrinking and they lose value in investors as people port elsewhere. But we're just...
I really think he is missing that there's been a vast complication to software engineering that has happened in the last 5 years. I call it conference-driven development. It's actually why I abstained from going to conferences for the last 4 years, because I've just became so frustrated with conference-driven development. I really think that it's been a true disaster to our field. There's been no greater disaster foisted upon any field than conference-driven development. And so I just have been very upset about it. And so I think that he is missing the fact that a lot of this is unnecessary complexity that has been added that requires that many employees to move. And I bet if you measured the speed it takes to deliver a feature per employee, what you would see is that as they added every single feature, the time it takes to deliver the next feature has greatly increased each time. And that there's some sort of linear growth or maybe even quadratic growth of feature delivery versus existing features. And that is the real problem, is that it's becoming untenable to wrangle these UIs.
Seen massive hyper specialization for roles that...
What do you mean by conference-driven development? There are a huge number of people that started using Falcor because they saw Falcor added to conference. Okay. They started using a tech that was used to solve problems specifically at Netflix for having and obtaining data to remain on a device. And because devices have limited memory. Is that ever your problem? Yet somehow, people started doing that. Conference-driven development is a real thing.
probably shouldn't even exist to begin with. And when we start to look at that problem, we start to see why tech companies are doing massive layoffs. A very big reason for this is the catalyst event, which was, of course, Elon buying Twitter. Now, I'm going to get into that in just a minute, too. So now as we start to see negative indicators in stock value, AI, future growth, things like that, especially, look at Meta. They tried to do this whole metaverse thing that failed. Lost billions of dollars.
By the way, I think metaverse was not I personally thought it was a stupid idea, but it's a great idea to make bets and to make bets early. You know what I mean? Like, as a big company and you have lots of money to burn, you should make bets into these technologies because honestly, you have absolutely no idea what's going to take off. Like, would anybody think that tweeting at people would have been $1 billion company? Would anybody would have thought, if I would have told you 20 years ago or whatever, how many times it is, that if you were given only 140 characters to send messages on the internet to nobody, like, you would not have thought, man, this is $1 billion idea. This will become one of the most important things ever. Flappy Bird. What happened if I told you that Mario-like tubes are going to be coming at a bird that you press your screen and a bird jumps once? That this would literally be a $50,000 a day game. You'd be like, okay, that seems a little strange, don't you think? Like, you can't make those kind of bets. And so I think it's very smart of them to attempt to be the company to be in that position. Now, I think they're just too early, right? There's the early problem, which is if you're too early to a tech, nobody is willing yet to use it. And so Vine walked so TikTok could run. Exactly.
Now they know, okay, we need to recoup some of that money, and the best way to do it is to start firing these people or doing layoffs of them that we never really needed to begin with. So a lot of people have this sort of idea that, programmers are all just getting fired now. No, they're not. Good programmers are not getting fired, not predominantly at least, except maybe at Unity, but that's a different topic. But the idea here is...
Good take there. Like, obviously some good programmers get, they catch a stray from layoffs and all that kind of stuff. I know that does exist. But in general, what he is saying, I think, is very, very accurate.
That if you're a good programmer, you're going to have a stable job. You're needed. There's tons of companies that are still growing, that are still bringing in new programmers. You don't need to worry. You only need to worry if you're one of the people that's getting hired in something super hyper specialized. And that's why I still recommend to people to be generalists. Be a good programmer who knows lots of frameworks, who knows lots of languages, who understands computer science intimately, because that makes you a valuable resource. They're not just going to fire you or get rid of you.
Know a little bit of math. Learn just a touch of statistics. Know what a standard deviation is. Let's go. Great. This is great. You have an intrinsic value when you bring something to the table beyond just being able to make one tiny button on the interface. When you really fundamentally understand how apps work and are designed, when you understand core architecture, you are never, ever going to be out of work. And if you do get fired because a company goes under or something, you're going to find work really fast as well. So you shouldn't worry about that. I see too many people panicking in the industry right now. The people getting fired are, in almost every case I've seen, the jobs that never should have existed to begin with. And I disagree with that. That's obvious, not true. But I do like, let's just one more time go back to something he said about being a generalist. If your goal is to be purely a React engineer and you're learning every last thing about React, there comes a point where it's no longer useful. And you got to understand that, it's great to have good knowledge. It's good. You should be familiar. But don't go so deep. Honestly, it's not worth it. It's truly not. Your bang for the buck is just not worth it. It really isn't. It's so much better that if you know enough about React, we're very, very valuable to know. You should know those things. You should be able to have a basic talk about React and kind of know how it works. Even I could have a basic talk about React and just have a basic oh yeah, these are the things that happens. Oh yeah, these are some of the behaviors, all this kind of stuff. That's good. But if someone said, okay, let's talk about Docker for a second, I could kind of talk about Docker. Oh, you want to talk about Go for a second? I could kind of talk about Go. You want to talk about how network protocols work? I could kind of talk about that as well, right? I could kind of talk about a lot of things. It's good for you. It's very, very good for you to understand the fundamentals of these things. How do you do encoding and decoding? Why would you make trade-offs? Why wouldn't you use JSON, right? I can have that conversation, and that is good. How old is your audience here? They're predominantly 25 to 45. That's 60 to 70% of my audience.
I don't mean to insult those people. Many of those people are generalists that ended up being forced into a specialization just to get a job because these companies don't want to hire generalists, right? These companies want to hire people in specific subsets because then they don't complain. They don't whine about wanting to do better, bigger things. They get comfortable in the role. They get comfortable in the fact that they don't have to do very much. And I think that that's just convenient for the industry. It's convenient for this type of mass hiring fraud, which is what I consider it. I know they just call it employee farming, but I call it employee fraud because ultimately this is bad for the companies because they do major layoffs and then they lose stock value because people think the company's shrinking. So it's bad for them and it's bad for employees because you never feel like you're stable. You feel like you work on things that don't matter. So you're just a cog in the well-oiled machine, if you want to even call it that, more like a brick in the wall. You're a brick in the wall of this machine, like at Meta or Facebook, and you just feel like you don't matter. You feel like your job is what, I think Joe Rogan had a podcast on this actually, called BS Jobs. But that's ultimately what's led to this is way over hiring and super specified jobs that they don't need. When you hire a generalist, they can replace 50 or 60 of those minor jobs that you don't need. If you...
First off, Joe Rogan mentioned Twitter's a wild place, people. I mean, there's part of me that really agrees with this take. Is that I do feel bad about I don't want to call them hyper specialized. I really hate that term because it's not valuable enough. It doesn't really get across the value of having hyper specialized individuals. It's hyper compartmentalized people would probably, I think, is a better way to describe that. Oh, thank you, hot wife. I think that is a better way to describe that exact thing than hyper specialized because their silo becomes more and more constricted constantly, and that causes their focus to be so small. That becomes like a really difficult problem because I think he is right. Then it becomes comfortable. It becomes easy to stay in that role. It becomes easy not to grow because you're so dang compartmentalized.
If you were a good leader, you wouldn't do that. I think another thing to talk about too that people are ignoring is even beyond the intentional fraud that's happening, a lot of CEOs just aren't good. They're just not good at their job. They're kind of hands off. They just push everything on other people. And I've seen this personally.
I think this is a very wild take. And what I mean by that is that that I am not going to say what the average CEO does. Because the average CEO, like bad CEOs, I do agree with. There's plenty of people that shouldn't be CEOs. They're CEOs because they founded the company, right? They started it. And not every CEO is a good CEO. But what sucks about it saying that they just simply don't do anything, like I've always hated that kind of take in the sense that if you look at any of these startups, you look at any of these people, like I've seen so many people that they're doing like 80 hours a week, every week for year after year. And it's just like, I don't want to simply just dunk on everybody. I think it's pretty silly to say that CEOs do nothing. And it's just like, no. There's plenty that do a ton. What are you trying to say with that? Are CEOs people who are technically engineers who then became CEOs because they started the company and they're just not good at people skills and can't plan ahead and they just really aren't the right person for the job? Yeah, I agree with that. I agree that probably happens more than you realize. And they're truly not the right person for the job. They're just the person that's there right now. Like that probably happens a lot. A lot of people have absolutely no idea how the C-suite works, right? I'm just, like, here's the thing is remember earlier when he said Snapchat shouldn't have 400 employees and we all agreed that that's just completely silly that you shouldn't be making these statements, especially when you have absolutely no idea what goes on. You should apply the same logic to everywhere else in life. Like if you've never sat on a mid-sized company C-suite board, you should, or at least be close enough to understand it. Maybe you should take a step back and not just assume you know everything, right? It's the same problem over and over and over again. Gavin Belson, best CEO, clearly the best CEO. My favorite thing about Gavin Belson is that he was upset that other people are making the world a better place better than he is, right? Like, don't just do that, right? There's plenty of of course there's shitty ones. Like how many software engineers just do nothing? You can make the same argument for every industry that there's shitty versions of. Put person in position A, find person that is shitty at position A, and say, wow, look at this. All software engineers are lazy. It's just like, no, that's not. Come on, right?
Too. My wife worked for a small company that had maybe 10 or 12 employees at one point, and they were growing a little bit, but the CEO just wanted to constantly hire more people for everything. Like, they are a 12-person small, nimble, light company, and she wanted to hire an entire social media development company to post posts on LinkedIn for them. They're 12 people. The CEO should just make a LinkedIn and start posting posts.
By the way, he's really right on this one. Like, it is kind of wild that like that type of cottage industry can even exist when you got nobody. Like, when you don't, like, do you know how, do you know that it's not hard to just say something on the internet? Watch. I'll go here, I'll go to Twitter, and I'll say, I guess I am working in JavaScript today. Wow. I'm a CEO. I'm a social media marketing genius.
They were hiring a social development firm for these tiny, what I would consider to be kind of worthless posts. Basically, something you could have just gone on AI and had ChatGPT write for you.
He's right.
I think a lot of CEOs are just bad with money. I think they're hands off. They don't want to wear many hats. They just want to rely on other people too much. And people that aren't sort of...
By the way, that's a good take right there. Don't outsource everything, right? Like, the people that I respect the most are people that get in the grind and do everything and really understand it. And then when it becomes too big of a job, then you hire it out, right?
Micromanagers tend to be like that. And, you know, micromanaging is its own problem, of course. Trying to do everything yourself is its own issue. That's kind of a separate topic. But good lean startups understand where to spend money and where not to waste money. And I find there's just way too much, especially with these big companies, of hands-off approach. Let's hire somebody for literally everything. We need to have more people in the industry who know how to wear many hats. So don't be afraid to be a programmer that has maybe 10 frameworks under their tool belt, right? You know how to use a lot of frameworks. You know how to use a lot of languages, and you understand architecture. So that should be your focus if you want to become a programmer and you're concerned about these tech layoffs.
That's always been a point of pride for me. Is what I would consider my biggest personal accomplishment at Netflix. Even though I think it's professionally one of the biggest disasters. Different story here. Is that part of the Falcor days, one of the requirements is that we needed to write a Objective-C client. Nobody wanted to do that. And I said, I'll do it. I'll learn Objective-C and I'll do it. Crushed it out in like a month. I was really, really proud of that because I went onto a platform in which I had no idea anything about it. I had to use an editor that I absolutely hated, Xcode. I had to learn Objective-C is just terrible. Just went and did it because I wanted because it's stupid to let yourself be limited, right? So I'm just like, hell yeah, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do the thing because I'm going to do the thing. And I felt really great about that. That made me feel really good because Objective-C is objectively bad.
One of the biggest catalysts we've seen in this industry was Elon buying Twitter. Now, say what you will about him positively or negatively affecting the platform. But I will tell you this, I do use Twitter. I am on X now as it's called, sorry. And it seems to me as though when he first bought it and fired 70% of the staff, things were shaky at first.
I agree.
But I think he tried to prioritize getting rid of the jobs, all these hyper specializations that don't matter, and keeping the good programmers that actually matter and actually fundamentally understand the architecture of how Twitter's actually built. And now what we're seeing is Twitter's faster than ever before. When I use Twitter now, it's way less bloated. It's lighter than it's ever been. There's some things I don't like about it. I think bots are maybe worse than ever. Like, that's been a big prioritization is make people pay and then that'll eliminate bots. That has not worked. So not everything.
I actually do agree with a lot of this take. You guys are all saying what? No. I think Twitter itself feels nice. I cannot say that I have any. If you were to give me Twitter a year ago or 2 years ago and Twitter today, I don't think I could largely tell a difference. I don't think he's simping for Elon because he just said bots are the worst they've ever been. Right? Like, I don't think any of this is simping. Like, I honestly don't think that if you could tell a difference between 2 years ago and today. I mean, how many times did Twitter crash 2 years ago? It crashed a lot. Or 3 years ago. How many times does it crash today? It crashed a lot. But to say that that somehow these things are that it's like technically worse. I think you guys are letting like maybe a little too much crap get in your head. Like, I agree that the practical application's way worse. Bots are awful. Every single time I make a tweet, I got pussy in bio on all of mine. I got so much pussy in the bio right now. I don't even know how it's possible I got that much. It's crazy. It's wild. It's unreal. But, like, humble brag, I'm just saying the ladies love my JavaScript tweets, okay? They love it. But I honestly, I cannot tell a difference. I can't tell a difference. I really can't. Now, I will say one positive thing that's happened to Twitter is that Mastodon got popular due to Elon buying it, and all the people that I really find annoying went to Mastodon, which was pretty sweet. Like, I was a really big fan of Blue Sky and Mastodon. Like, thank you for that. I appreciate that. Thank you. I don't need that many well actuallys. I don't. Thank you. Appreciate
Elon
that.
has done has worked, but he managed to fire 71%. That's what we know of. It might actually be a bigger number than that, but at least.
By the way, people hate that I hate Mastodon. I love hating Mastodon. I cannot stand it. I always, every single time I've been called a racist in the last year, which is 3 separate occasions, each one, their Twitter name was their Mastodon name. My last one was yesterday, in which he called both me and If You Use HTMX a racist. That one was pretty impressive. I've never seen a library of peace be called a racist. That was like a whole new level of different. Like, that one was pretty good. He also said I probably listen to Joe Rogan, which I think is hilarious. Like, what a funny accusation. You a racist? And you probably listen to Joe Rogan. It's just like, damn, you got me. You got me. Dude, it's so good. That was so funny. Like, honestly, I actually really enjoyed that tweet. It made me chuckle on the inside.
At least 71% of the employees. There was something like 8,000, and it's around 2,000 now, and it's still operating fine. Yeah, there were some.
By the way, I'm not saying anything about Elon Musk. I have my own personal opinions about the guy, but you'll notice I tend not to voice a lot of those kind of opinions on this channel. I tend not to try to take down individuals or say things for the most part. Yeah, that's just a me thing. That's a me personal thing. It's kind of one of those things that I've been trying to uphold. It's just a me thing. Okay.
Some growing pains at first, or shrinking pains at first, but it's working. Other tech companies looked at this. They saw how many, literally millions of dollars a month in operating costs it's saving them, getting rid of all.
Fine. Fine. I'll tell you what I think about Elon Musk. I'll tell you. Flip. Zoom in. Yeah, zoom in. Go deep. Get right into my face. I don't care.
All these employees. Now, other companies are going like, well, stock evaluation does matter, but making money matters too. And that also affects stock evaluation. So I think other people, especially CEOs now, are starting to see how bloated their corporations are. And they're starting to kind of go the Elon route, which is just the idea of, well, do we really need 6,000 people at Facebook working on the UI? No, I don't think that they do. I don't think they do at all. I don't think they need more than a couple dozen at most, and that might even be over hiring. That might.
Again, agree with the idea and principle. He really just needs to correct his specific takes, which is more ownership and expectation should be delivered to engineers, and when you don't need that many engineers, you should cut the ones you don't need. I think that's a better way to say it. But man, this man's been bruised by buttons. This man has been bruised by buttons, and he's hurting. Okay, he's hurting. I can't say how many. I cannot say how many devs are needed at Twitter. Before Elon took over, probably needed less devs. After Elon's taken over, probably need more devs. But where's that line? I have no clue, because I literally don't know.
Might even be bloated. I think just a few guys can usually build great UIs and UX experiments. That's my opinion. You know, I've run lean startups, so I kind of have at least a inkling of an idea what to do. But I can't speak for Facebook. I don't know how many people they need. I know it's not 6,000 though. So I think a big part of the layoffs are just they overhired to begin with. If we look at Cloudflare right now, this has been making big news just the last few days. Cloudflare is doing basically secret layoffs. Now, no one has the full...
We did. We watched the lady that filmed herself getting laid off. Damn, son. That one was... That Cloudflare, I mean, that one was... That was a video.
Information on how many people they're letting go or anything. But it appears as though they're firing people at cause, but there is no cause and they're not listing causes, which is really, it's just layoffs in disguise, because layoffs sound bad, so they don't want their stock value to go down, but they want to have their cake and eat it too. They want to get rid of people to save money. And I have seen from the videos I've watched of people talking about this, and from the articles I've read of people who are getting laid off, it seems to me that they're getting rid of those hyper-specialized jobs that they probably didn't need to begin with. So I think Cloudflare is already, you know, kind of following in the footsteps of Elon. They're doing the same thing that everybody else is doing right now. And I think it's sad. And I think it's sad that they're disingenuous about it and not telling people the truth. That's bad for employees, and that's bad for the company ultimately, because it really doesn't inspire
That's a pretty reasonable take at the end. That was a pretty nice take at the end, that it is not good to have these fake layoffs and all that. It is not good for anybody, right? It doesn't make anybody feel better. I don't think it creates confidence in the company. You know, there's a lot of stuff. I wish I had the ability to ramble like this for 30 minutes. Holy shit. Technically, we're only at 18 minutes, okay? And I feel like I actually feel like I'm the one doing all the rambling here.
trust in the company. Employees don't want to go work for Cloudflare if they know that they're kind of secretly behind the scenes firing people that they never should have hired to begin with. That's just called...
By the way, that is really good. I mean, can we all agree with this? It's actually, he's talking about you. Oh, thanks, TJ. Shut up, TJ. That's actually one of the reasons. So to be completely fair, when I started at Netflix 10 years and 6 months ago, when I went to Netflix, one of the very first things they said on their culture deck is, we hire fast, we fire fast. It made me excited. It made me excited because that means this is a company that's going to care. Right? Like, I was excited for the challenge. Yeah, we are a team, not a family. Like that was in their culture deck. We're a team, we're not a family. We're not loyal. Do good work, get compensated well. Don't do good work, get a generous severance package. Literally in the old culture deck, it was so much more blunt, and I loved it. And truly, I think the downfall of Netflix culture has been the reduction in the intense language. And one of my favorite statements in the old one was, be an A-team player, get paid A-team well. Be a B-team player, get a A-team severance. Something along that line. It was really to the point, and it was awesome. It was so... Okay, stop making fun of Falcor. Falcor did solve a specific problem that we had on devices. Right? It did. It was such a... I really loved that. Falcor was the right tool for the job for what we were solving. We had memory problems. I know you guys have never worked in a memory-constrained environment, but imagine working in a memory-constrained environment while using JavaScript. Okay? You may not realize how hard it is, but it is not easy. Okay? It's not... Atreyu! No, shut... We're not bringing up Never-Ending Story. Okay? It's hard.
Bad management. Unity said that they're firing something around 2,000 people. Maybe it was 1,800 or something around that. It was about 25% of their workforce. Now, it's not doing it all in one day. They're going to kind of spread it out over the next few months. I think this is a really good example of a company that's having to lay people off for both reasons. They have terrible management. There's no debating that. They tried to screw over every game developer, everybody that used Unity, everybody that worked with Unity, including myself. I'm literally in the process of building a game in Unity. And then I go to my news app one day and find out Unity is going to charge for installs, which is just outright, blatantly the stupidest business move I've ever seen in any industry. I think that ultimately that will kill Unity as a company. So yeah, I think with Unity, it goes way beyond just they overhired. But if you look at who they're firing, they're not getting rid of their best programmers. So yeah, we're seeing, of course, companies are targeting.
Again, I love what he's saying, but I think he's fundamentally incorrect in pointing out what the problem is. It's not... It's Thor. First off, Thor. I'm not sure if Thor said Godot is better than Unity. I'm pretty sure he said, here's the different strengths and weaknesses of each engine. You should choose the one you want to use. I'm pretty sure that's Thor's like literal words. Thor is entirely too pragmatic to just say blanket statements. Godot is better than Unity. Okay, come on. He said it, but with a much sexier voice. The thing that I think he's really, truly missing here is that the driving factor isn't like, it's not employees. That's not the problem. The reason why Unity was in the position it was in is that they went public. They asked for money to expand. They got the money to expand, and so the expectation was more revenue. They had to hire more and more people to be able to grow the product as fast as possible. When you hire too many people, you add in a bunch of process complexity, you add in a bunch of relational complexity, you add in a bunch of just people that may or may not be the best fit, that adds software complexity, and at the end of the day, they had to increase their revenue, and they couldn't keep on going with their per-seat model because they did what is considered the biggest Faustian bargain, which is becoming a publicly traded company in which you're ever required to gain more revenue over and over again. So what ends up happening? They have to go and try to create a new revenue stream. And the only way to create a new revenue stream is either by ads, which they're trying to do, or B, they're going to need to be able to charge more to the people creating/downloading games. And so what are they going to do? They're going to have to get in between every single purchase. And how do they try to do that? They did it by an install fee. Stupidest plan ever? Absolutely. Really didn't think that one through. I'm glad they walked it back. But nonetheless, they added yet another fee, because what are they beholden to? They're not beholden to how many employees they have. They are beholden to how much revenue they create. That is what it is. And so if you ever think that the number of employees correlates to what the problem is, I think you're fundamentally wrong. You are simply looking at a correlation and calling it the causation. That's not the problem.
Targeting the employees that don't matter. So my advice, I guess, to you, if you are a programmer and you're watching this now and you're looking to get a job, try to avoid getting a hyper-specialized job to begin with. Make it so that you're somebody that can't be easily fired. Make it so that you're in a role that is at least some sort of general role that's not too hyper-specialized, so that you're valuable to the company. And when push comes to shove and they have to get rid of people, they're going to get rid of you last. So here I have a list of companies that are doing layoffs as we speak, and or going to do layoffs, have announced they're going to do some, and in the past year doing major layoffs. And this,
I will say one thing that I really enjoyed about being at Netflix over these last couple of years, because it's been pretty what's it called? It's been pretty tumultuous for a lot of companies, is Netflix laid off 100 people, and it had to do with us reducing our animation, I believe is what we said. I can't remember our exact reason we said publicly, but we are effectively de-investing from a specific content vertical line, and we are slowly releasing those people from that content vertical line. And like, that's it. And so that was fantastic. You know, that's one thing that's been very nice, is working at a company that doesn't have the ever threat of layoffs. For people that are working on that, honestly, I'm so sorry. Like, that has to be so dang hard to work at a company that you have the looming threat of layoffs at all points. Like, the amount of Twitch staff engineers that I got to talk to, that they learned that 1/3 of Twitch is being laid off by a Bloomberg news article, and they had to wait more than 24 hours to learn if they're the one in Bloomberg that was mentioned. Like, that's so dang awful. Like, that level of awful, I can't even fathom. That should be illegal. I don't think being shitty should be illegal. And I mean that. I don't think being a shitty company should be illegal. That's just shitty business practices. And what that's going to mean is that their ability to hire the cream of the crop just simply went down. That's it, right? It hurts them in the long run because, like me personally, if you said, hey, do you want to work at Twitch? You're going to have a really hard time convincing me to work at Twitch because I looked at what they did and I said, I mean, like, right? Like, that's hard. Hey, you Siren, one of the people caught a stray on the layoffs, right?
This is just a few of them. This isn't all of them. This is just the big ones. We've got Amazon. They've fired thousands of people already, and they're planning thousands more. Same thing with IBM. Thousands of people have been fired and let go. Dell, Rivian.
IBM's a unique story. Like, a lot of these things he's saying, like, IBM has, 400,000 employees? So if they fire 1,000 employees, like, is firing 0.25% of your staff, like, is that crazy? It's not, it's like, is that crazy?
Microsoft, Google or Alphabet is firing 30,000 people. We've got Salesforce that fired 8,000, I think, if I recall correctly. Meta, Facebook, 10,000. They're doing a bunch more too. Coinbase fired 1,500, I think. I could be wrong on that one. You've got Zoom fired tons of people. Spotify, Dropbox, Yahoo, Epic Games just fired 800 people. Again, I looked at the charts of who they were firing. I looked at personal opinions. I looked at Twitter, and it seemed to me like Epic was firing almost entirely people they should have never hired to begin with. Xerox, Twitch, Atlassian, AMD, Intel, Lyft, and Uber are firing thousands. Highland Software, Nokia's firing 14,000 people in its tech.
Can we just take a moment here? Nokia's still a company. Wow. I know. Every time I remember that Nokia's a company, I go, the fuck? What?
Sector. You've got LinkedIn firing thousands, Qualcomm, Oracle, Shopify, Groupon,
LinkedIn,
and there's
let's go.
3 or 4 dozen more big companies that I didn't even list. Almost all of them across the board were vastly over hiring.
Can we take one quick second to jump in here? He just named all those companies. I bet you could take any single one of those companies right now, and you could go on Google and say jobs at, and they have open software engineering jobs right now. So I think this backs up the point that they are firing people they did not need. I think his observation, again, is correct. And I've said this a few times now, because you could definitely go to any of those places and you could find that. They're definitely hiring right now. There were some good hires that got let go. There were some bad hires that stayed, right? That did happen. BlackBerry pivoted to networking. They're doing very well. That's about the last thing I think I would have ever thought I would read. But here we are. Here we are, button engineers.
Just thousands and thousands of more people than they needed. They were employee farming. That's all it is. So easy to look at this and think, oh, these companies are firing people in anticipation of just a recession. Yeah, that's probably a factor, but yeah, I think it goes way beyond that. One other thing I want to talk about too is how awful tech interviews have become. Now, I want to make a totally separate video about.
We got 2 minutes left in this video, and this is where we're going. You can't just start there.
This later. But because of this hyper specialization, tech interviews they're garbage now. They're the most painful process to go through, and they require so much unnecessary hyper specialized details when you're interviewing. I just hate it. So if you're out there and you're interviewing, this is actually good news for you because we're going to start to see hiring practices massively shift. Instead of doing these hyper specialized roles, all these companies are going to realize that it might actually be more profitable not to just follow the crowd of what people have done for the last 5 years, 10 years, but they're going to start hiring more generalists and people who wear more hats and have more value to the company. So we're going to see a lot more useful tech interviews. You're going to go into a tech interview, they're going to test you on the basics of the knowledge. We're going to start seeing FizzBuzz probably make a comeback, which will be really funny. And
by the way, so just to be fair, I probably asked FizzBuzz 100 times in an interview. FizzBuzz is one of my favorite questions to ask when someone doesn't know what FizzBuzz is. It's like, I think it's great. It is an incredible problem to suss out how somebody thinks. It's really, really great. It's really, really great. Do people really not know FizzBuzz? You are on you might be a little bit more terminally online than the average individual.
And we're just going to see more useful interviewing done, probably by more useful people who are less hyper-specialized themselves. So I think that's one good thing that will come out of this. If you're a good programmer, I think you will actually become more in demand, and you will probably make more money too. Because as they weed out all the people that are too specialized or maybe aren't general enough, don't understand architecture well enough, we're going to see the value proportionately increase of individual programmers. And we saw this happen in the reverse direction the last kind of 20, 30 years, where programmers used to have super high wages proportionately to everything else. And now today, programmers make kind of much more similar money to a lot of blue collar jobs. I mean, the average programming wage in America is between like $80,000 and $120,000. That's also what the average journeyman electrician makes now. I mean, things have really shifted.
A little bit of too much correlation going here again. You know what I mean? There's a little bit of a correlation going here. That's not the problem with what he just said. Is that there is such a deep need for people who are skilled craftsmen right now that wages have risen incredibly fast in the trades. And so, like, that's real. And so saying that, oh, this mean, you know, look at this, these things are now lining up. That's not fair. It's not fair. We're having an aging out problem in the trades because of a computer effectively revolution, a tech revolution that's happened 20 years ago. And so now it's just like, now it's going, yeah, good skilled tradesmen are super hard to find. That's because they're aging out. And now you're left with a bunch of young dummies that don't know how to do it nearly as well. Absolutely think that, like, honestly, if my kid said, "Hey, I'm gonna go be a tradesperson," I'd be like, "Go get it, buddy. Go get it," because I think that's a very valuable job, and that's going to continue to be a very valuable job for a long time.
Shifted to blue collar jobs being almost as valuable, and that's probably just due to oversaturation in the industry. So it'll be.
What if you like driving buses? I would not do that one.
A good thing to see that kind of change and shift back to what it really should be. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really do appreciate it. I'm going to try to start getting more active on my channel again. Please like this video, subscribe down below. Make sure you click the notification button because I'm going to be coming out with probably a new video every week. Thank you so much for watching again, and see you later.
All right, well, I think, again, look, I released this video 2 days ago. Stop showing me my own videos. I mean, overall, I really liked that video. I really did like the video, and I think it led to a lot of really cool things to look and think about. I think some of his reasonings is where I thought was poor. Everything else, you know, I know tech lead. Can you believe it? The tech lead is here, dude. How does that man survive? Can we all just take a moment and think, how did that guy survive his personality? Shocking. It's absolutely shocking. It's shocking that man can go on the internet and be like, women shouldn't program, and then he still makes a comeback. I mean, absolutely wild. Absolutely wild that he could do that. But, you know, I think it just goes to show how many people aren't on the internet, and they just don't care. You know what I mean? The art of the clickbait. Better than me. I ain't good at it. I'll tell you that much. I ain't good at it at all. It's because he's a millionaire. Oh, that's what it requires? I don't think that's how the internet works. All right. Anyways, I really like the video, and I think that it's definitely something to really mull over in your head, in the sense of, what do you want to see yourself doing in 5 years? Do you really want to continue down a hyper specialization on just React? Like, maybe that just makes you happy, and like, that's okay. That's okay if that's what you want, right? But also take some time to do other things. Learn other things. Become specialized in many things. Become a jack of all trades, master of one. It's okay to be a master of one, but a jack of all trades. Because that was the original phrase. I hope you guys know that the original one was a jack of all trades and a master of one. It became a joke to say, my husband's a master of all trades or a jack of all trades and a master of none, right? It was the joke that became the phrase. So, do that. React can be your mastery. That's fine. If that's what you want, go for it. But be a jack of all trades. It will help you more than anything else. The name? You know the name. Don't even come at me like that, okay? If you don't know my name by now, well, the name's the Primogen. If you don't know it, the name's the Primogen. I'm just really appreciative that you're here and you made it all the way to the end. Could you put a comment in? Could you press the like button? Could you press it for me? I appreciate it.